Hello, welcome to Romero Threads on YouTube, where it's all about embroidery. In today's video, I'm going to digitize and embroider the San Francisco 49er logo. And let's start out with our fill stitch. So this red part is going to be a fill stitch, and I'm just going to get a quick little trace and then go back into it and kind of fine tune all my nodes. So since this is an oval, I'm just going to kind of add my circular nodes here and trace it as perfect as possible. And once I have a good trace, I'm just gonna double check that I'm good to go. And once it looks good, I'm just gonna adjust my stitch angle. So here I have it at a 15 degree. And then at the very end, I'll adjust my start stop. So here it was showing that my stop is on the bottom and my start is on top, but that's gonna turn around at the very end. And now I'm gonna fine tune my border. So all I really did was duplicate my fill stitch and I turned it into just a steel stitch. And now I'm just gonna fine tune my nodes and just make sure that my nodes matches the actual design. So there are quicker ways to do this part, but I just want to get kind of like a super accurate trace with the correct stitch angles. So I'm just going in, tracing it, adding or removing nodes if I have to. And once I'm good to go, okay, then I just double check, make sure everything is lining up perfect. And once everything looks good to go, I'm gonna do the same thing on the black sand stitch here. So here I'm just gonna trace it, and this is gonna be a steel stitch. I'm gonna do the same thing where I'm gonna break it apart. Then I'm just gonna match my nodes to match the design. So right here, I think like the secret here is where I offset it to a 0, and that just brings my design perfectly to the design here. Okay, and then the same thing, I'm just gonna match up my nodes. So I just kind of want to fast forward this part just so you can see kind of like how all I'm doing is matching nodes with the design here. All right, once I have that, I'm gonna verify my overlaps. Usually with curves designs like this, I want to have at least a 1.5 overlap, because curves, for some reason, they like to push and pull a little tighter. So especially during the kind of like the roundabouts where the turns are getting a little tight. All right, so I'm just measuring, making sure everything's good to go. And at the very end, I'm gonna fine tune it again just to make sure everything's good to go. But here we're looking good. So now it's time to do our text. So in Wilcom, I use the column B tool. So whatever software you have, you know the tools that you have, and it's just a matter of tracing your objects. Okay, and I'm trying to follow my sequence as close as possible, but I still change everything at the very end. So you'll see me at the very end kind of like readjust my order of operations. But for the most part, I'm trying to follow like the order that I'm going. And you see here where I'm using green as my color. I'm just using that just to kind of contrast my design so I can kind of see the thread on top of the design. So of course, I'm going to change the colors at the very end, but for right now, I'm just using green to kind of see where I'm at. And here I'm starting from the bottom, working my way up, and my running stitches, I use that just so to avoid any trims here, so you can see where I'm adding those. And the letter portion, I'm doing all that in one shot, so there's no cuts in between. And here I'm gonna kind of save the settings and my stitch angles, like the fine tuning at the very end. But right here I'm kind of putting like a rough stitch angles here, which right now it looks good, but I'm gonna go back and kind of fine tune that. And then this part of the leg and this part of the S, this will be our last object here on this S. All right, and everything looks good to go. We just kind of fix things up a bit, and once we're ready, we'll do the black border. Here I'm using a steel stitch. Steel stitch, kind of like, it's real simple to do borders with your steel stitch, and you kind of have the ability to change the stitch length like in one shot, and also the offset. So here I'm putting an offset of 20%, and that's just kind of controlling my baseline, like my center line. So if I want it to be more inward into the S, I could change that, or if I want it to be more outward, I could change it like with one setting. All right, and once I got that, just fine tune it, make sure my trace looks good, and it's just a matter of tracing all my border here. So I'll just let it run so you can see me just trace this outside border portion. And once I got everything traced out, this is all a matter of fine tuning my settings. I'm measuring things, making sure everything kind of adds up and overlaps correctly, my start stops, and I'm kind of focusing on my trims. I already kind of have an idea of how many trims I should have. I should have 6 trims, so this is why I'm right here. I'm kind of adjusting things around, making sure I don't have any unnecessary cuts. And of course, we want to get a good stitch angles on the S, and it's just a matter of fine tuning. I know Wilcom here, it'll kind of have the drawing of the threads. You kind of don't want the threads to be at awkward angles, so that's kind of what I'm fine tuning here. And the good thing I like about sampling files is that if there's any changes or anything, I always go back and kind of fine tune any small little things that look out of place. Sometimes it's things that nobody even recognizes or notices, but you as a digitizer or as an embroiderer, you might notice little small details that does not line up. So easy practice to just go back and kind of fix things around, but for the most part we want this first round to be as accurate as possible. So here I'm just looking at kind of potential areas where certain objects could kind of pull more than other areas. So sometimes certain settings won't just solve them. We kind of gotta manually fix certain areas here. So you could kind of see where I'm doing that here. So I'm just gonna let this play out. So here I'm just making changes to either push-pull to the underlays, start stops. Really it's just the 10-point checklist of digitizing, and I'm just kind of following, making sure everything looks good. and then I do a quick replay. And once everything looks good, we send it to the machine. And one thing about digitizing, whatever you tell the software to do, like the machine's gonna take that file and do exactly what you programmed it. So that's the best part of digitizing, is whatever you program, the embroidery machine is gonna do exactly what you tell it to do. To me, that is like the best part of digitizing and embroidery here. All right, let me know what you think. If you have any questions, comments, leave it down below, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace out, everybody.